Hi, welcome back. And on this edition of our book talk, we are going to talk about something that is sometimes a little controversial for book lovers. And that is when a graphic work is created from an original. And this can sometimes be difficult because you love the original. Just like when a movie is made from the original and you're like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And I really like to delve into it because for me, it is a different form. And I always treat it as a separate collaboration, a separate piece of work. And oftentimes it is a completely separate piece of work. The author may decide to say, I'm turning this over, and it is now the author that is going to be working with it. And maybe it's because I love picture books, and I know that oftentimes artists work in isolation from the word Smith, and it's together that they make a great story, that I enjoy reading graphic works that come out of an original piece of prose. And so, with that being said, I want to sort of explain that a little bit more since I myself love to tell stories. So, I am showing you a picture. This is of my grandparents, my grandma and grandpa, my mother's parents, and it's on their honeymoon. And for their honeymoon, they went camping and hiking with my grandpa's older brother, Buck, and his wife, Bee, and their little daughter, Rita, who was still being carried. She was a baby. And they had a lovely time. And when they came across the cabin that you saw, my grandpa joked. This is from my grandpa's point of view. He joked. He goes, "Oh, Jean, this is going to be our honeymoon cabin. This is the house I'm going to buy you." And everybody had a good laugh. And I've heard this story from different points of view. And so they insisted on posing in front of it. My grandfather had his gun. So take a look at the picture again. And what do you see? Well, it looks like they both have guns, right? Well, only my grandfather had his rifle with him. And my grandmother would pipe in and say it was entirely unfair that only Wayne got to have a gun. I wanted to have a gun too. Why should he be the only one that's carrying it around for the picture? And she knew better. I mean, they both knew better about firearms than to be actually wrestling with the gun, but she was very put out about this entire thing. So she went around, and as my grandpa put it, she went and looked for a stick. And my grandmother said, well, he left me no options. So what you see in this picture is my grandmother holding a piece of wood. A picture can say a lot. It can interpret a story and give it a lot of meaning. And I remember as a kid, when I came across that picture for the first time, I always thought grandmother was holding a gun, just like Papa. But she wasn't. But she looks so fierce, but at the same time, if you look at her face, she also looks very irritated because Grandpa would not give her the gun. And I think there's a lot of things to say about the story and a lot of things that you can say using pictures and other people's perspectives and point of views. And as somebody from a younger generation, I also understood my grandmother's need and determination as an only child and as somebody who took care of her family from a young age of wanting to be independent. And though those words never came out from my grandparents, either of them, that's what I understood from the story. My grandmother wanted to show that she could be just as independent and fierce as her husband. And that, I think, is the power of having another voice. So I personally love to read both the original story and I also love to read the collaborators and the art, and to see how somebody else takes the story that comes from the heart and the mind and the imagination of somebody else and interprets it with art. So, with that being said, I hope that for some people, it might convince you to try it. It might convince you, if you read the graphic work, you might want to read the words that might have been missed in the artwork. Or if you've read the written work, you might want to see the art and what it might convey. Because there are always spaces that are filled up that are missing from both. So, with that being said, I want to introduce you to two of my favorites that I feel filled in, those gaps and spaces that I really wanted. So the first one is book I've already talked about this year. Heaven forbid I not talk about Jason Reynolds another time. But I got to listen to him and the graphic novelist talk. And I will post as well the link to that discussion in my book talk so that you can go along for the ride. But first, let me introduce the book that paved the way, which is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. And you can tell I bought this before he won all of those stickers that would grace the cover. And Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, I won't go too much in depth in case you saw the other book talk, is about a young man who is 15 years old named Will. And it is told in verse. And for those of you who don't know, and maybe it's not important to you, but to me, where verse lines on a page is so important and necessary in the way that it reads. And maybe it doesn't matter to you, but trust me, it makes an impact. And so I really was curious to see how this was going to translate into graphic format, because it's different. But basically what happens in this book is you have a young man named Will. He's 15 years old. And for most of his life, the dominant male figure for him has been his brother. Sean is everything. My sister is so much to me. I mean, she's not just my sister, she's my best friend. But beyond that, Sean is also a father figure to Will. And right away in the opening scene, I'm not giving anything away to you, Sean is killed. He's killed by gun violence. And just his whole world buckles. And there are rules on the street. The first is no crying. The second is no snitching. And the third, of course, is revenge always. And for some of you, you may have grown up in communities where this is the case. And I'm certainly not a stranger to that. Not that it was part of a code I lived by, although certainly no snitching for sure. And I think a lot of young people can relate to that. But this was certainly something that was familiar for me in where I lived. And also where I live now. And what Will ends up doing is following the third rule. But before he can do that, he gets on, as you can tell, what does this look like? An elevator, right, for his tenement building. And as he presses the first button to go down, the first floor opens, and someone steps on. And it's someone who shouldn't be able to step on because he's dead. And it's someone Will knows. And this begins the longest journey of his life and the most cramped one in an elevator. So it is a very moving book. When I read this book, I was very, I'm still choked. I'm still very choked up by it. And it's because it very much touched me as an impact on a life that touched mine at different points. Being someone who is white, it didn't impact me in the same way in my community, but it certainly impacted people I loved. And here where I live now, this is something that certainly impacts the kids I care about. And so I very much felt this struggle. So then the graphic comes out. Oh, I am going to read that baby. I mean, it doesn't matter that I love this book so much. And I'm like, nothing can place this. I want to read it. So let me introduce you to the beautiful graphic. And yes, I love it. Long Way Down, Jason Reynolds, with art by Danica Novgorodoff. And I hope I said your name right. I listened to both of you speak a lot, and in hopes to get the last name right, because I'm horrible with names. And uh, this too. Let me just show you the opening. I never want to give things away, and so what I told you about like Jason's book right now, it's on the back. It's like it's in the back matter. I mean, it tells you right on the back what's happening. Okay, so I didn't give anything away. And you open this up and look at the lush scene, right? I mean, it's a day, it's bright, it's hopeful, okay? And even some of the spacing here very much mimics the poetic style of Jason and what he has in his book. And it says the story is true, it happened to me. And right away, I'm already in love with how Danica is reading this book. And hearing the conversation too between her and Jason. Jason was like, hands off, I made my work, Danica's going to do this, after he selected her as the artist. And I love how Will is like the pieces. We see Will, really all of Will for the first time in pieces. And to me, that's okay. I'm doing my English teacher symbolism thing, but I love it. But you have all of this color, and it's important that you have this color because of the contrast that's going to happen, right? Because what did I say happens right in the beginning? Sean is killed. So you have all of this brilliant color. He's playing basketball, right? With Tony, who is the best ball player, but he's also the shortest. And then what happens, right? And just take a look, right? Okay. The bam is like this. Oh, it feels like etched in blood to me. Okay. You hear this bam. And you hear this bam. And I hear it. It's visual, but I'm hearing it. Okay. And then just this spread. I'm just going to do the spread here. And there's only one, right? But we all know who it is. And I'm not going to show the next because it is graphic and for some it might be too much. But we know who it is. And seeing it versus my imagination, which my imagination is still pretty. Okay, so you have all the color, right? But then after that, the color starts to drain. Okay? To me, there was something about that. To me, there was this visceral feeling. And for any of us who have ever lost somebody, we understand that feeling, don't we? For anyone who has ever lost somebody due to violence, I think you can understand that even more. And so one of the other things too that I want to point out is that because of all the violence too and the trauma that Will has gone through in his life, a lot of his memories too of people are so unclear. It's things that other people tell you. And I have readily admitted before that I've had trauma in my life, and a lot of my memories, like Sean's, like Will's, are dependent upon Sean. Like Sean saying, you know this or you know that, and he's like, man, I don't know any of this. And so they're like half-faded memories. And one of the things that Danica does that I really I find beautiful, okay, is she captures that half-faded feeling so well. So I just want to show you an image of that, okay? Of that half-faded feeling. So this spread here, okay? And I'm just not going to mention names, but you see how the faces are like half there, right? And this is something that Jason mentions in his book. She hasn't changed anything about what Jason has written in his book. But she captures that. And for me, that's what the memories are like too. When my sister tells me, it's like, I'm seeing it, but I'm not, because I don't really have those memories. And there's a lot of brilliant things that are done in this book visually. Okay, so like my grandma holding the stick, that I can hear the story, but then seeing it and seeing her face and feeling how desperately she wanted to be independent, how desperately Will wants to see that. It produces, again, an emotion for me. This, of course, compared to Long Way Down the book, okay, you can even just look at it. It's not going to contain every single thing that Jason Reynolds writes. It just isn't. Um, but it also produces a feeling that, um, or I guess I want to say it adds more. It adds a feeling. It gives me more depth, more roundness to some of the characters than I might have felt with just this. So I feel blessed to have both in my world. And so definitely pick it up. If you have not read Long Way Down yet by Jason Reynolds, I talked to you about it a while ago. And then Long Way Down with Jason Reynolds and Danica Novgorodoff. Novgorodoff, pardon me. It is something that is worth picking up and trying. So I do recommend this. So now I'm going to talk about another. I know, I go too long every time. So this is an older book, and it is one that has not faded from my memory. And another author that I have met, this one's signed too, just like my Jason Reynolds. I'm not stalking you, Jason, I swear. And I'm not stalking you, Laurie. Speak. Now, if you take a look at this book, this has been around a long time, and it was a National Book Award finalist. I'm just going to take a quick look in here to see when it actually came out. Look, see, I got a sign, be jealous. Okay. No, you don't have to be jealous. Okay. 1998, 1999. All right. I love this cover. I always loved this cover. It's called Speak. And the reason for that is there are certain things our main character, Melinda, doesn't say. And in fact, she mutes her voice severely and doesn't talk hardly at all in this book. But eventually you find out why. And again, I'm not going to tell you. I will say this. What ends up happening right away in the book that you find out is there's a party. Okay, it's freshman year. Melinda's this beautiful artist. By the way, lends itself really great, right, to a graphic book because she's an artist. And there's this big party. Big party. We're talking like, seniors, everybody's there, drinking, all kinds of stuff that's happening. And she ends up calling the cops. Breaks up the party. People get ticketed. People are pissed. And they don't understand. Why'd you call the cops? Like, seriously? Like, just leave if you don't want to be here. You can imagine the kind of hazing, the kind of harassment, the kind of abuse that she undergoes as she enters into her freshman year. Like, maybe you shouldn't have come here, like, little girl, if you weren't ready for a party. What they don't understand is that there was a reason, okay? There's certainly a reason. And it's a reason that is traumatic and a reason that she does not speak. Now, as we start, you don't know if she maybe did speak about it with somebody and it didn't go right, or maybe you don't know what the reason is, okay? All you know is that something has happened. Now, we would probably look at it and say she's going through depression. Certainly, we would say trauma. None of these things are really said, okay, in the book, because this is an older book. But we know something has happened. And the only way she feels that she can communicate truly is through her art. And people are freaking awful in this book. I'm just going to say it. And for those of you who are in high school or middle school, you know this. You know people are awful. They can be horrible. And I hate to say this, but sometimes it still continues afterwards. And the only thing that might change is you and your ability to say, I don't need you. Okay? And so you feel for Melinda, and you also want to know what happened. What happened? And that is one of the driving forces in this book. And if you read close, you might start to figure out what it is that's happened to her. This is a book that really also touched me deeply, just like Jason Reynolds. And I cannot tell you why, because I do not want to spoil this book. But it is a book that I recommend often to many people. And it is powerful. So when I heard it was going to be a graphic novel, again, I still always had that little trepidation, like, oh, please make it a good one, because sometimes people may take a story you love and interpret it in a way that you isn't maybe true to the spirit or the tone or the mood of the book or the way that you felt. And I'm so happy to say that it was a success. So let me show you. Okay. So in this one, okay, look at this cover. Remember, okay, wait. Let me show you in case you already forgot. Okay. Okay, we see this. You see this tree? Look at this. Okay, are we not paying like some homage to this here a little bit? So we have speak, and I love even just the typeface down here. I feel like that is also paying tribute to the typeface here. There's a lot of graphic design on the cover of this I really like that I feel, and you can even see her face right here, right? So Laurie Halse Anderson, again, for words, and then we have artwork by Emily Carroll. And I do need to thank the publisher for this because they just sent me a copy when I was working at the public library. And I was like, how did you know I like this? And this is Farrar from New York. And I'm sure I am butchering their publishing name. My husband laughs at me for not knowing these things. This is told in black and white. Okay. I don't know how many of you have experienced trauma. And like I was talking about with Long Way Down, with Will, sometimes things drain from your world. Okay. And that is very much the case with Melinda. And when we open in her life, that is the case right away. So I want to show you this. There's no traditional panels done on this, nor is there, like you would expect like in a comic, nor is there traditional panels done for Long Way Down. And I want to say I like that as somebody who consumes graphics and comics, because there's no structure in either of these protagonists' lives, neither for Will nor for Melinda. They've experienced very traumatic events. Their lives are sort of like all over the place. And you may see like cutouts, like some paneling like this. But if you also take a look here, you'll also see things breaking what you would consider to be the pattern. And I like that. I do. Because I don't think that we are a part of a pattern. And I think for both of these young people, neither are they. They're still trying to find their place. And so one of the few places you're going to see her really come to life is going to be in her art class. I just have to show you one of my favorite scenes. I feel like every single person has felt like this at some point. So she's talking about spring break and says, my house is shrinking and I feel like Alice in Wonderland. I have to get out of here. Look at this. Oh my goodness. I mean, we talk about Will filling in close spaces in the elevator. How often have we felt like this, my friends, right? I can't. The house, the thing that's supposed to make you feel safe, and it's not, right? It's closing in. And so I really hope that you go on Melinda's journey. I know I'm not saying much about it because to do so reveals too much. But imagine that you are in a place where something horrendous has happened to you and you have no one to talk to. You have everybody, and everybody assumes that there is something wrong with you. You are the problem, and you are being harassed. And I don't even want to use the word bullied because it's much worse. You're being abused at school for something that is not you. And the only way you can find a voice is through your art. This book really lends itself well to the art. She really is able to find her voice this way. And it's also a great way too for her to communicate her thoughts, because a lot of the book are her thoughts. Now, of course, this does not contain all the words of Laurie Halse Anderson, just like in Long Way Down. Okay. But what Emily Carroll does is I feel that she gives you the feeling, right? Like you saw in the house. It's hard to describe that metaphor, and yet you see that and you feel that, don't you? You feel that like, I'm stuck. I can't get out. And I think that that is one of the things that you trade off for when you have the visuals. So just like with my grandmother holding the stick in the picture, I may not be able to give you the same visuals or the same stories or have my grandmother and grandfather here to tell you. But you also sense this need for independence that you may not get in their words. So once again, let me just go ahead and show you. So Long Way Down, Jason Reynolds, okay, his original text. And then the graphic, Jason Reynolds, Long Way Down, with art by Danica Nagor Danica, just go ahead and yell at me. By Danica Novgorodoff. I'm working on it. My last name's Zufa, honey, so that took me a while. All right. So the next is by Laurie Halse Anderson, Speak. And then again, Speak in graphic form, the graphic novel, Laurie Halse Anderson. Can't even say Anderson. Look at that, Danica. And then it has art by Emily Carroll. I recommend all 4 of these books. I feel that it gives you a fuller dimension of the stories of these characters. And I can't stress it enough. And at one point, I'm going to talk about classic adaptations where, author's not here, and then how do we change things? And yeah, I think it's kind of fun. So with that being said, I wish you good health. I wish you happy reading. I wish you new adventures in your reading. And I hope this finds you well. Thanks.